Oh boy. Hi everybody. Welcome to it's a spooky Halloween show. Hi everybody. Welcome to the show. Glad everybody. I'm joined as usual by a whole bunch of my Patreon patrons and channel members. So how's everybody doing? Everybody talk at once.
Hey.
Everybody talk at
Oh, we're
once.
supposed to all talk at once?
That's what happens anyway.
For those out of the loop, Steve is temporarily blind.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right. No, man, I'm not temporarily blind. I'm temporarily cool.
Are you saying that the rest of the time you're not cool at all?
I think that speaks for itself.
He's just wearing those while he recovers from his eye surgery.
Yes, I had cataract surgery, so the light bothers me for a little while. I don't have to wear them all the time.
If your cataract surgery was anything like the surgery, your vasectomy surgery you had, condolences.
There were sunglasses down a little bit lower too, but you can't really tell because I always frame myself from the waist up. So
it's important to have like the brain of the operations to also have protection as well.
Exactly. Yes. You know.
Steve, you look like Irish.
I'm sorry. This is.
What were you saying, Isaiah? I couldn't hear you.
No, say you look like Ivor Stephen Bear.
Hey! I didn't even think about that. Yeah, he always wears like the John Lennon glasses, doesn't he? Yeah.
This is. I'm sorry to bring up something kind of crude, but the idea of a vasectomy of the recovery process is actually more scary to me than the surgery itself. Because for weeks afterward you have to take some kind of suppressant to keep it down. And if you get a little excited, it's like, the stitches came out.
But no, actually, there are people.
The stitches are out. I'm bleeding everywhere.
No, that's actually happened. And people who had surgery in that area on that unit, as it were, they actually do need to have ice packs next to them, or a trusted and loving partner who understands to have ice packs run at the ready, because yes, you do need to cool that thing down when the natural thing happens, because yes, you can pop those stitches, and yes, it can get blood everywhere.
I will say, just for my own personal experience, and since it's Halloween, let's talk about vasectomies.
Hey, Radical Bacon.
Hey, Radical Bacon in the chat. This is just my own personal experience. My recovery was not terribly painful or terribly difficult at all. I had to have ice or a frozen vegetable bag, something to cool it down for a couple of days.
Frozen corn works great, doesn't it?
Oh man, frozen corn, frozen peas, and then afterwards, after you're done with it, you have a delicious side dish.
No, it's seasoning.
Wait. Let's be clear on this, Steve. You kept them in the bag.
Yes, there's a plastic barrier.
Yes.
While they were marinating on his meat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, but
it
seriously,
it reduces the time required to thaw it, though. So
it very much does. It goes straight from there into the boiling water, and there you go.
It just seems like so much trouble though. Don't they have a pill that can chemically castrate you for 3 weeks or something?
Well, the cold is actually just to keep the swelling down after the surgery. And you're not. They tell you don't do any sexual activity for I think 2 weeks it was. And I'm single and I live alone, so no problem there. But
you got Star Trek. Why do you need to do the other thing?
And luckily, Star Trek does not sexually arouse me. I just like it as a TV show. So
even though it's horny as shit.
Weird out.
Yeah. Oh no, because apparently Star Trek only recently became horny. So it hasn't been horny all along for people, I guess. But
I mean, how many women have Captain Kirk has slept with in the course of the 63 episodes or so?
That's one of my things. Because I did my Lower Decks review and gave it kind of a mixed review, but I also defended the show for that shot. There's a shot in one of the later episodes in the season where it's on the holodeck, and the holographic recreation of Ensign Boimler is up on the bar with his legs over his head,
advertising his OnlyFans.
Yeah, exactly. And most people who probably don't even watch the show just saw that still and were like, oh my god, what's happened to Star Trek? And I was like, you guys know that it's always been as horny as it could get away with.
I mean,
have you seen any of the advertisements for Enterprise?
yes. Oh my God, Enterprise. The Rick Berman show, as it were, because he also co-wrote a lot of those things. We saw Topal's butt, just the top part of it,
Just
but like,
and for no reason other than to see it. It was purely titillation. It was just
Didn't you guys ever watch the show?
Exactly.
Also, like,
and let us keep.
It's like Kirk with a girl in a bikini all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no kidding. Yeah. Whether it was what's her face from Triskelion or you know the gal from the Roman society, whatever have you. And let's not forget how many zillions of women were, would have loved to have jumped Spock back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And let's not forget about the slash fiction. Let's not.
And I one of the things that just came to mind was when like Riker is such a Chad, so in control of himself that like when Q literally like summons a couple of women into existence, he's like, I don't need your fantasy women.
And that's a good point. That's a good point, Michael. Bacon back to Enterprise, the decontamination gel,
which was Well, that's the thing. Like, the show has always, from the very beginning, it has been as horny and as adult in general as it could get away with being. The reason why because some of the longtime fans who don't like the new stuff, and they don't like how adult some of the new stuff is. They say like, oh, Star Trek used to be a family show. Well, it used to be a family show because it always used to be on network TV, and there was only so much they could get away with. I mean, if you actually watch the show, going all the way back to original series, they always pushed that boundary as far as they thought they could get away with. And Gene Roddenberry was a horny, perverted old man who wanted Ferengi to have giant dicks. I can't stress that enough. He had to be talked out of of establishing that Ferengi had humongous cocks and were like these, sexual beasts. And it's like, that's the creator of the thing.
Stress that enough.
Yeah. Steve, one more thing as it comes to that, is especially it ties into the original series. 3 words, proper noun, William Ware Thies.
Yes, exactly. He designed those barely there costumes.
Yes, he did.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, like the women from What's a Scratch It in Shore Leave. And you could rattle off any number of episodes where you got Thies basically going as randy as he possibly could get away with. And I would love to have heard some of the arguments between him and the censors. And believe me, back in the 60s, the NBC censors were nuts.
That was NBC was the network that had Gilligan Hines, and the censors there also had the producers had the whole problems because, like, at the time in the 60s, for whatever reason, you cannot see a woman's navel. So, like, Marianne,
the little triangle,
yes, they had to have like a little triangle to cover up that navel, as it were. And then Ginger had wanted to like have her cleavage be like out, as it were, too. But that's why like some of the costumes in like the original Trek had to have that special little dot in the center, as it were.
Okay, so
I think it does make you wonder, what were those guys doing with belly buttons?
Okay, so here's the thing that I've noticed that's kind of funny. These like anti-SJW types, these like former Gamergator types who are like bitching about new Trek and things. I mean, there are other people who also, for their own reasons, don't like new Trek, but whatever. But for those types, it's funny because when they first like lost their minds over Anita Sarkeesian, it's because we want to see more boobs in our games. We're the guys who like the boobs. We're the guys who like sexy things. And now every remotely sexy thing, they're like, oh, look at how depraved and degenerate this is. It's like, oh, how very Nazi of them.
Yeah, they're just being contrarians, and they're just fine. They'll complain about whatever there is to complain about. Exactly, they don't.
I never understand being a man, to be honest.
That's I kind of like did my own thing anyway. Then I realized that, like, wait a minute, sometimes I'm not even a man because gender is weird that way too. But like all over on like Twitch, you're right, Nick. Some of those same Gamergators that were complaining about Need for Speed and wanting to take their boobs away in their video games would also hate the titty streamers or the hot tub streamers on Twitch, and they would say they're taking away the views from the male gamers. They're trying to, like, they didn't earn their place, to try to use their sexuality to their advantage. When it's been revealed, we kind of already know this, that the top 100 like streamers that make the most money on Twitch, only 3 of them are women, and only one of them is a woman of color. So it's just like, it's almost just hatred.
Aeromath. Doesn't she do that? Some woman on Twitch does that. She, is a body streamer or something.
Oh yeah, there's some body paint streamers as well, and cosplay streamers as well. There's all types of different streamers there too. But yeah, the top 100 streamers that just in view camps as well as money, 97 of them are men. Most of them white men too. So take what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. I just get tired of people whining and bitching about it. It's like, grow up.
Something I want to say about Halloween. I don't know if anybody here has any Halloween traditions, but I usually get together with my brother and we watch a scary, a funny scary movie. Yeah. Not something like Saw, just something like The Blob, I guess. Last night we watched Little Shop of Horrors. Oh. The one with Rick Moranis.
Yes. That one is truly epic, especially and the guy who really turns it in is Steve Martin.
Steve Martin is the dentist. Is so good in that movie.
I love when villains have a whole song about how much they love being mean.
Oh, it's such a great song.
You'll be a dentist.
It's such a great song.
Then I was so disappointed. I'm like, shit, this is the one with a lame, stupid, happy ending. I wanted to see the giant Audrey's walking around the city eating everybody. I wanted to see the cool ending. Well,
he does wind up with an Audrey in his garden. So I mean,
yeah, but I want to see him die. I want to see everybody get screwed by his actions.
Oh, come on, man! Use your imagination.
If you hadn't already picked the movie yet, on Shudder right now, I think it came out this year. Jacob's Wife is an amazing horror comedy.
And
I've never even heard of that one.
Mystic's dog is taking over for him.
Yeah. One thing I want to throw out as, shall we say, a word of warning, and that word is foundation. Gag me.
I haven't been watching it.
They're telling a story.
Yeah.
It's not at least especially Isaac Asimov's story, but they're telling a story. There was a time there when I thought maybe they were circling back to one of the plot elements that Salvor Hardin, the original, was dealing with when he was dealing with the King of Anacreon. But I mean, whoa.
I feel like everyone who adapts Isaac Asimov does not want to tell Isaac Asimov's story.
I Robot he's dead.
I'll say Bicentennial Man had a sense of it at least. I mean, but but of course then too you also had Robin Williams in there, and the second you throw that in there, you might as well have thrown Proto Matter into the mix if you get my reference there. But now on the other hand, I've also seen Denis Villeneuve's Dune, and it's okay. I saw it. I got HBO Max, so I figured, what the heck, I'll see it there, and maybe I'll see it in the theater. The biggest problem with it is that it is a rehash of a rehash, and as a result, I mean, it's good. It includes certain things. It leaves certain things out. I swear that business about he will know your ways as if they are your own. I read Dune, and I never saw that line anywhere in it. And it's possible I missed it, but.
It's in the book.
Oh, it is in the book. Okay. Much as I shudder to think, I may actually have to reread the damnable thing. But
I can tell you're a fan.
Well, I'll tell you what, Steve. I'll tell you what. I went through the primary six. Dune. Yeah. God, what was the
Children of Dune?
Well, Children of Dune is the third book. I can't remember
Dune
the
Messiah.
Second. And Dune Messiah. God, Emperor of Dune, Chapter House Dune, and Heretic of Dune, and those last three are wastes of paper. I mean, they simply are. The one thing I really liked about the sci-fi miniseries, which I still think is probably the best of the bunch, is that they quit with Children of Dune. And I thought their execution of the overall thing was really very good. And I mean, Villeneuve, he does a nice job, but we've seen it already.
Yeah. I haven't watched it. not really planning to watch it because I'm just not a Dune fan, and it doesn't look like it's my kind of thing. But the director is, I mean, because I saw his, I guess his big movie before this was Arrival about
Arrival
6
was
years ago,
wonderful.
which is a terrific movie.
It's brilliant. It is, you know, the way they deal with that, the way they deal with, you know, just the language and coming unglued in time, and just the overall concept. I mean, I don't know who wrote that one, but the writing on that should have gotten an Oscar. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual successor to Contact, I've heard.
Oh yeah. Right.
It's a lot like Contact. Yeah.
I love Contact too, but I haven't seen The Arrival. But I already know the spoilers because I watch Paul Fosse too's Betrick. My brain is blanking like
Freak English troop.
The event that like where the England voted out of the EU. Like my
Brexit?
brain, the Brexit. My brain actually blanked on that word right then and there. But the point is, Isaiah, you have your hand up. Do you want to say something?
Oh yeah. I think Nick. I think Nick brought up what we do as a tradition for Halloween.
Yeah.
I watch Forensic Files.
Oh.
And then I'm going over to a friend's house to pass out candy and take the kids to the neighborhood. So that's what I do. Forensic Files. Usually with sorry, let me backtrack. Forensic Files, fish and chips, and then go to a friend's house to like pass out candy and eat pizza and soda and stuff.
That's cool.
Forensic Files is like the perfect little true crime show, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like if you've only got half an hour, it's like I want to hear about some murder, and boom, you just put it on.
Yeah. And
well, I mean, investigation discovery is very much the same way.
Yeah.
My gal is all about that stuff.
And on top of that, I get to watch the show and get some ideas for my channel, which is doing pretty good right now.
Yep. I'll quickly, since you brought up Isaiah, I'll put your YouTube channel. I have it up already on the second monitor. Isaiah's Tears like a sinister intelligence channel. Go check it out. I haven't.
Over 1,000 views on all my videos, and I've already got 36 subscribers, and I started this channel in February. So
that's awesome. That's terrific.
Julian, you're next.
So yeah, one just on the horror movie front, I figured it's a quick plug since I just did a podcast with Jamel Bowie from the New York Times about John Carpenter's The Thing. So if anyone can stomach going to a libertarian website without bursting into flames.
Which kind of libertarian? Right-wing libertarians? Okay.
Don't worry about that too much. But yeah, so Jamel Bowie and I talk about The Thing for an hour, and he's pretty smart about it. But about Dune, I just saw it yesterday, and I remember, I'm kind of leaving it thinking, yeah, this is really pretty, but it works best as a kind of moving illustration for the book. I also kind of dipped back into the book and realized this is a lot more poorly written than I recall when I was, 19. I have trouble imagining this being intelligible. If you're just going in trying to watch it as a self-standing narrative, or maybe it would be kind of intelligible, but the stuff I think people love about the book doesn't really translate well to even to a 2.5 hour first half of the book kind of translation. So I think it's sort of is gorgeous, but functions as like the illustrated place that you would look at in a fancy edition of the book. It's something you read the book and then you see this very pretty illustration of it. But I don't know how well it works on its own.
Yeah. Eric, your hand's up.
Oh, yeah. I was interested in your take on that episode of Lower Decks. We were talking about mental health in Starfleet.
Yeah.
And they had that space battle with the Packlets, and everybody's chest thumping and hooting, and then they pan over to Boimler, and he's crying over his console.
Poor Boimler. And then there was also that that's kind of a recurring thing for him, because he was really traumatized after his experience in the holodeck with the Borg too.
Right.
And they kind of played that off as a laugh when he gets his perfect score, but then he has to keep going and he ends up getting assimilated, and they drag him out, and they're like joshing him and giving him a little bit of a hard time on and the the mess hall, I guess, afterwards, and he's like really upset. Like you can tell he's like, they took everything I was, and they're like, come on, get over it. Yeah, and also they've sort of established that Mariner sort of does holodeck therapy. You know,
workout.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think it's you know, it's nice to see a Star Trek show, and Discovery has done some mental health related stuff too. So it's nice to see the sort of the current generations, you know, acknowledging mental health issues and trying to explore them, or at least acknowledge them. I mean, and Lower Decks would seem to be a good venue for that, because the whole premise is, you know, we're focusing on the junior officers, not the heroes. So, you know, if they're
excuse you, that's rude.
No, the protagonists, the traditional Star Trek protagonists are the background characters, and the traditional background characters are the protagonists. That's
just say
are the heroes. Say it, Steve. They're the heroes.
They're the heroes. Yes, the heroes.
Say bridge crew.
Thank you.
The bridge, yeah, just say bridge crew. But you know what I'm saying. So if they show some cracks in the facade, and they show, like, you know, this is actually really stressful, you guys, like, that makes a little bit more, you know, a little bit more sense. And it's nice to see, you know, because not only is it a little bit more realistic, but and addresses issues that real people actually deal with that often aren't addressed in Star Trek, or at least aren't addressed in any kind of deep way. But it gives you more avenue for storytelling, you know, which I would like. It will be nice if Lower Decks did more of.
It's actually one of my favorite parts of the Horatio Hornblower books, and that where it goes into a lot of the, like, not being able to show the stress when you are an officer to the men because it would destroy morale, kind of thing, and they just have to, like, hold it all in and just be proper and quiet about it, and then it's, you know, draining once they are alone.
Yeah, and that's a really, like, I guess you could call it a trope, because you know, I've seen that in a couple of different movies and TV shows. You know, you're a hard ass when you're in the moment, or when you're in front of the people that you need to be a hard ass in front of, and then as soon as you get behind closed doors, you're just like, oh my god, you know, or you break down, or whatever. You know, that's really not only does it speak to a part of human nature and a part of human experience, and you know, sort of let you know that, hey, it's okay to let things get to you. It's okay to feel things. It's okay to feel the pressure. Like, it's just part of being human, but also it's really dramatically effective, you know, when you see, like, the big strong character.
Steve, it may also be integrally part of, you know, being an officer, is, you know, whether at the captain grade or the God, I can't even remember what, you know, there's a gradation that ends at captain. There's another gradation that ends at full bird colonel before you get into the general ranks. But this is one situation where, that guy that we have with us who was in the British Army, I would love to have had his point of view as it comes to this. Yes.
Yeah.
Because he's been there and he's done that. And I think, you know, his input, I think, would be invaluable here. I wish he was around.
Yeah.
I think it's true of any point in authority as well, because, you know, any point where you're, you know, in charge of others who are sort of looking to you for leadership, but it's, you know, and it's not just about being a hard ass, because you also want to establish a relationship, a reason for beyond just the nominal authority, but a reason for these people to follow you. And so you want to show your humanity as well, and you know, show that you're relatable and approachable in the appropriate way. But, you know, there's how far do you go before, you know, you're too loose and casual, and how far do you go on the other side before you're too authoritarian, and you know, you lose that connection.
So where would you put Captain Jellico in that spectrum?
That, you know, Jellico is tough because we never see the other side of him.
Yeah.
You know, we only get him for 2 episodes, and it's, you know, both halves of a 2-parter, so really only for one story, and you never see what lies behind the facade. You get little hints of it, like he has pictures from his son, so he's a parent, so he has like a more human personal side that comes out somewhere, but you never see that in the show. So it's interesting.
They cut the scene where he's alone in 10 Forward singing karaoke to Behind Blue Eyes.
Oh, Jesus.
Boy.
I think even though he is like really chain of command and very by the book, the fact that he was willing to like essentially demean his rank to Riker for that purpose shows a lot of his character.
I think
it was either that or the entire situation that they were trying to work out against the Cardassians would have fallen on its face.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he either had to eat some crow, or that entire situation was in grave peril.
Yeah. Well, and I think the because of the premise of that episode or those episodes, I think Jellico knew going in that it was probably going to be a short-term assignment. I mean, he didn't lead with that. Like, he didn't tell the crew that. He wasn't like, don't worry, I'm only going to be here for a few days. Like, he wanted them to feel like it was a permanent thing. But, regardless, like, he had his own ship. So regardless of whether Picard and company came back from their mission or not, I don't think he expected that he was going to be the permanent captain of the Enterprise. So he was very sort of all business the entire time he was there, not just because they had this really stressful mission to prepare for, but also because I think he assumed that he wasn't going to be there forever anyway. So it wasn't really in his interest to, make like these strong bonds with the crew, because what's the point?
Yeah. Well, Steve, I have to bring up, I'm sure you read my commentary on the whole business with Jellico, but the problem is, I mean, even if he's going to be a guy in command and he's supposed to be followed, number one, he's not dealing with grunts. This isn't the U.S. Army of World War II. He's dealing with a whole bunch of incredibly intelligent people who know their jobs, in some cases better than he does. In the second case, if he really wants cooperation, he brings his senior staff into the ready room. He says, this is how it is. Make sure this is communicated down through channels so that everybody gets it. He never does that. And that is a massive mistake in my humble opinion.
And that's why I think Riker's position has validity in that episode. I think some of the things that Riker brings up to Jellico in their scene together aren't necessarily the right things, because like he gives Jellico a hard time because he's saying you have everybody wound up too tight and there's no joy in anything, and it's like that's not really that important. But but what you said, Lauren, the idea that he doesn't respect them and he doesn't treat them as though they know their jobs.
The first thing he does, right, is say, okay, I've just arrived. We're in the middle of a kind of, emergency situation, and I want to talk about changing the duty rosters or whatever. I feel like, in a kind of non-emergency scenario, maybe a new leader coming in says, all right, I'm going to make a big change, kind of right up front, kind of the same way you like get in a fight the first day in prison to sort of say, okay, no, I'm establishing that I'm in charge, and you got to do things the way I want. But I feel like a good executive does not come into an organization that's in a sort of stress situation and immediately start making changes before kind of taking some time to observe.
Oh boy.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Julian, I have to interject on that one. We had exactly that situation at one of my former employers. We had a guy come in who was going to head up manufacturing, and he literally got all the manufacturing personnel together in the main plant, and he started talking about all the changes he was intending on making, and he finishes it off with, "You guys really don't know anything about manufacturing." He lasted 2 years, and it was the only circumstance I ever remember where when he was fired, let's call a spade here. They actually sent out a global email to all employees announcing his departure from the company.
Wow.
Yeah.
Stop asking us to get rid of him. Okay, we got rid of him.
Yeah. The guy was a horse's ass of the first water, and I'll tell you bluntly, our company suffered.
Yeah.
When he was there.
Yeah, that I just wanted to point out that the first Deadpool doll said that Jellico is a project in front of the live chat. Jellico's a project manager. He swooped into the office for a specific job and he's gone in 2 weeks. If he wanted it done, he doesn't have time to navigate their feelings, which I think is an interesting reading of the character as well. But I think Radical Bacon's point of their personal experience is I had a leader break a cane on the table because he was angry and got offended when I characterized the action as violence. And so yeah,
okay,
that's not violent.
How else are you supposed to characterize that?
I would suggest that the leader did not get angry when you said that, but the leader was probably already angry and got angrier.
What with the cane breaking and all?
You know, it's a little clue there.
Yeah, it was his favorite cane, you know?
God damn it.
Meetings will continue until morale improves.
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
So, just I've been keeping quiet for a while. There's just a couple things I want to point out. Unfortunately, this is a piece that people watching this won't be able to see, but I made this, I'm going to link it in Zoom, just this piece of art I made where I theorize Blair got Childs in the thing. Because if you look at the room, where Childs was standing guard and, he was dozing off, there's a stairway to the basement where, Blair could have come up there. And then you see there's 2 rooms and one adjacent room connecting them. So Blair could have gone through one door, snuck behind Childs, gone out that door and gotten him. And that's just how I always assumed it happened. So that's why I drew there.
Mm-hmm. It's still good, a drawing too. And it's really cool. And yeah.
But that's a lot of emotion in that drawing. I love it.
Thank you. I was just showing him just barely awake. Okay, another thing, Jellico. There is an amazing Twitter account that is just dedicated to Jellico telling dad jokes.
Yes, that's amazing.
It makes my day. It's Worf going have you considered doing lunges? I don't know. That sounds like a big step.
Yeah, it's amazing.
One of my favorites, Jellico going, for hundreds of years, Australia's biggest export was boomerangs. Coincidentally, it was also the biggest import.
So it's a Captain Edward Jellico at ST Delta Shift.
Yeah,
is that the Twitter account. Okay, posting it into the chat.
It's so funny. I've followed it for a long time. It's hilarious. It's one of my favorite Twitter accounts.
Imagine if Jellico had stuck around or appeared for a couple more episodes, and that was a part of his character. Was that he told dad jokes.
He's like this taciturn, remote, unapproachable hard ass who also is constantly telling dad jokes.
Okay. That Troy got to wear like an actual uniform. I did like that he did that.
Yeah, and she kept it on.
Yeah,
she didn't just switch back to the whatever she wears after that episode. He was like, I'm going to come back and you better have that uniform on. She's like, all right.
It's okay. Speaking of dad jokes, my plant manager at the work, his costume was quite interesting. It took me a while to figure it out, but I'll describe it as just a white t-shirt with the mini boxes of Rice Krispies, cornflakes, honey cones, Cheerios, and the knives and forks stabbed through them and blood all over. Because
a serial killer.
Exactly.
I gotcha.
Took me a second to figure that out because I also just said, but you know what? Okay, I can appreciate that joke as a costume. So has anyone watched the movie? Anyone has seen Squid Games?
I have not seen any of it.
Not yet.
No,
I've seen bits and pieces of it. My favorite scene is the tug of war. That whole sequence is riveting.
I'm still upset to learn that it does not actually involve squid.
Yeah, I watched and enjoyed a Japanese series called Alice in Borderland, which, as far as I can tell, is basically the same plot, or at least the same premise.
There's a whole genre of these death games. They're especially popular on that side of the world.
The Hunger Games, anyone?
Yeah, which was based off of a battle royale. Oh no, actually, the Hunger Games. No, the Hunger Games was Running Man meets the Truman Show.
Yes, that's right.
But here's the thing about Squid Game and all these battle royale style death games. It's so easy to watch them and be like, oh, that character was being dumb there. I would have made a much smarter decision and made it through that. No, you wouldn't. It's like, it'd be one thing if you could see, like, I don't know, like 10 people getting through, but every one of these death games always ends with 1 or 2 people out of hundreds.
Yes.
Because even if the first couple games seem kind of easy, where if you just focus on being smart, you'll get through, and a bunch of other people do, then you have games like the Tug of War, which is clearly meant to cut people by half. It's like, okay, too many people are making it to the next stage of the game, so we gotta thin the herd a bit. Come on. So it's like it's to make to like funnel you so that only, so that barely anyone makes it alive. It's like, geez, if you were in one of those death games, you may as well just check out, right?
Well,
isn't
the
the whole
glass
premise
floor
that
one
only
is essentially statistically impossible.
isn't the entire premise that there's only one winner in the end anyway?
Yeah, that's the thing about all these death games is sometimes like you start out with a bunch of people, or you'll start with like a classroom of 30 or 60 kids, and by the end of it, they're all gone. Yeah. It's like, that was depressing.
I won't go any further because, like, on coming up on Social Justice Alchemy, basically my friend Joanna like DM me, have you seen Squid Games? No, I'm not. Please watch it. It could be a good topic for the next SJA. And so I was like, okay, fine. I'll finally do homework, and I'm doing this for her because she wants to talk about Squid Games. She wants to geek out about it. And
so did you watch it?
I did watch it. I did.
Okay.
I think
I was going to say they have episode summaries on Wikipedia.
I was going to say it would have been great if you would have said I didn't watch it, but
Isaiah.
Isaiah.
Well, go ahead, Dana.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I haven't watched it, but I used it as a lesson for my students on the difference between topic and theme. I said, you're familiar with the Hunger Games. You're familiar with Squid Games. I said, same topic, kind of like what Nick said, but they go the way that the story develops. They develop different messages depending on who is picked, how they're picked, and how they either win or lose. So
that's a good point.
Isaiah, go for it.
I haven't watched it because, well, for one, I don't have Netflix anymore, and I also heard that there were people who were like criticizing it because people were buying all the merchandise for it and watching it, despite it being an anti-capitalist movie. But then they were contributing to the same system they were trying to criticize. I don't know.
Okay, I'm an anarchist.
The monopoly paradigm.
Yeah.
But the thing is, even I get criticized for why I have a smartphone. It's okay. We all are forced to play a game. Some of them choose to play Squid Game, and again, they were kind of like see as their only out because they're all in crippling debt. But spoilers for like just the second episode, so don't worry. It's just like, but they got to vote at the end of the first episode to leave, but many chose to come back because the outside world was already hell anyway. They decided might as well at least knowingly go to the Squid Games for a chance to win millions or billions, as it were, or billion wongs, as it were. And we're forced to live under capitalism, and so we have to participate in capitalism, and it's okay to like some of the things that is produced under capitalism. And it's just that there's no ethical production under capitalism. And so they're trying, the people who say that you're being a hypocrite is trying to like nerf to end the conversation there, to just like here's my reason for like not listening to you. And
the Good Place kind of highlighted this in one of the later seasons. They broke down
changing
how
the equation.
no matter how much you try to not leave like a negative trace on the world, every action, everything you get hurts somebody somewhere. It's just not possible to not cause any harm. It's just because of the way the system is designed.
And there's really, I mean, even in a non-capitalist society, I mean, there's no way to completely avoid that. I mean, it sucks that that's the way it is, but like, you eat an apple, you have no way of knowing if the person who picked that apple was mistreated or if it was grown on stolen land or whatever. Like and I think that was what made that episode of The Good Place so smart, was that they were acknowledging, like, we make choices every day, moment to moment, even having no idea what has led to those choices, because most of it didn't even involve us.
I'll push back. I'll push back on what you said. They think this will still happen in like a non-capitalist economy or non-capitalist society.
Yeah.
I like to see that for us to actually fully be in a non-capitalist society, in a socialist economy society, and that way, I think that there's not that exploitation there of the workers. That's where they choose to plant to pick the apples and they choose to like do those sort of things. But also, it's kind of similar to what others, even some of the Steve's viewers said to me. Okay, go off and live in the cave, as it were. Something like some Facebook friends also.
Well, you'd run out of caves eventually.
The short answer is just the short answer is just and yet you participate in society. How curious.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the toxic mentality you see with like so many things when it comes to like climate change, capitalism, anything. Is they put it all on the individual.
Yes.
Make it about individual choices. This is the misunderstanding about things like CRT. CRT doesn't care if Joe or Mary is personally a racist. It cares about the system, about how the rules.
Yes, but it might make people feel bad.
I'm saying with CRT, climate change, capitalism, all these things, it's about the framework. It's not about individual choices, because any one given person just doesn't leave that big of an impact on the world.
Yeah, but you put enough individual people together and you do have an impact. At
some point or other,
the individual has to be educated. You either have that or you don't get change.
There's a massive amount of the big propaganda machine that is going to counteract that. It's going to keep us complicit. It's part of the society of the spectacle. It's part of the Squid Games. It's part of the whole thing. The Roman emperors knew that all the people, the peasants need is just bread and games, and then they'll be pacified to not revolt to something like that. Or this old German saying of "You keep them stupid, I keep them poor," says the Duke to the Bishop. That way, we rule forever.
Something I want to bring up that's going back to scary things. Well, actually, no. Everything we're talking about is
it's all been scary so far.
Okay. But another thing about death games. One of the most horrific death game concepts I've seen, and it's another one of those. Actually, I don't know if it might be Korean, but it's about a class of students, and if they don't play along, or if they lose, they disappear. I don't just mean the person dies. I mean they are erased from the world. Thanos snapped. Their desk appears, and all evidence that they ever existed, only the other students remember. So you have this scene where one student disappears, and then it cuts to her parents, at home, and they're like, "Honey, why'd you put an extra plate there?" Because her parents have already forgotten her, and so by the end of it, there's only one student. There's nobody else to remember that any of those kids ever existed. And then she forgets, because she's the only person who survives these games. And every time she wakes up in a new school, not remembering who she is. So that's the tragic twist of it, is that those kids. That is horrific to me.
That's fantastic. It's horrible, but it's
the concept of all evidence of you ever existing being gone.
That's some
that was
Twilight Zone shit.
To take it in a different direction, that was one of my favorite parts of the Harry Potter series, was when Hermione went back and made her parents forget that she existed so that she could protect them from the Wizarding War. I'm just that's just.
Did you do that both in the movie and in the book? Because I don't recall that from the book.
Yeah, she took herself out of it in the book as well. I think it was I don't remember if it was in the 7th one or the 8th one. But I mean, I just liked her position in it as one of the very few completely muggle-oriented characters. And it would have been really interesting. I thought it would have been really interesting to see more of that dynamic.
Yeah, I would say in the book, it's essentially 2 sentences where she just tells Harry that she does that or did that.
And Harry's cool.
In the movie, where it's implicitly they show a flashback scene of her doing that.
Yeah.
I find myself incredibly jaded lately by stories that have magical beings or mutants or monsters as allegory for a marginalized group. If only because racists, they'll say oh, this group of people, they're scary, or they're more dangerous, more violent, when that's not true. But you can say that about super beings or people who turn into werewolves or whatever. And that's the beauty of it, is that those types of people don't exist. So there's no rational basis in real life to be bigoted against people.
I remember thinking this about there was like for a long time in like Marvel comics you had X-Men and mutant registration as a kind of allegory for suppression. It was originally I guess like non-whites, and then more recently kind of became a kind of gay allegory. And then you had the Civil War thing, like I guess 20 years ago now, about superhero registration and everything. Well, this is a like an interesting kind of war on terror allegory, but if you take it literally, like in the real world, you wouldn't actually like allow, like no society would actually allow like anonymous people to go around wielding these sort of incredible powers to like dish out violence unaccountably.
To
even
teleport inside the Oval Office and stab the president.
No, in the real world, you would register these people. Like,
well, at the very least, Superman has to pay for all the insurance damages. The insurance companies for sure will go after Superman.
So here's one big thing. I just wanted to say I brought up this example like a year or so ago. Attack on Titan. That is one of the most repugnantly anti-Semitic works I've ever seen. And it took me until like 3/4 through the story to realize it. So the people that turn into Titans, called Eldians, are just the Jews of that world. And on the mainland, they are treated just like Jews were in Nazi Germany. It's not even coded. It's just blatant. They have the star. They live in ghettos. Their faces are drawn like a certain way. And all the while, the other societies of the world are treating them this way because for thousands of years, the Eldians used their power to turn into giant man-eating monsters to oppress everybody else. So this is just payback. And I hate that trope of the current oppressors being the former oppressed. And the problem is, let's give the author the benefit of the doubt. And I don't remember something like this happened, but let's say he threw in a twist at the very end saying, oh yeah, all that stuff about the Eldians oppressing everybody else for generations, that was all bullshit. We just made it up so that we could oppress them. Even if he threw something like that in there, well, that still means that for years in real life, as the books were slowly being released, readers were left to think the contrary. They were left to wonder. And like people who are like anti-Semitic and identified with the book, with that trope, they were able to look and go like, yeah, this book is red pilled as fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the material harm that you can cause with a story like that in like real life, is letting that even be a question for such a long time. And
I think
don't
anyone
think
who's
it was
gonna,
an accident.
I think for the most part, if someone's gonna like go into Attack on Titan finding confirmation for their anti-Semitic convictions, they probably didn't need Attack on Titan to bolster their anti-Semitic convictions.
Well, okay, they can get true. They can get like the Turner guys or more express things. But I'll let you finish your point, Nick.
The most generous interpretation I've seen some people make is that, oh, but you see, it's not like he's not saying that the mainlanders were right to treat the Eldians this way. He's saying that they're both bad, that everybody's cruel and evil inside. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so much better.
We got very nice people on both sides. Tell me
there are two scenarios here. Best case scenario, this was just a Japanese guy who just does not understand the things he's trying to be brave and edgy about. Worst case and more likely scenario, because I don't think he accidentally made this incredibly anti-Semitic series, I think he does believe that like oppressors and oppressed are just as bad. In this case, Nazis and Jews being just as bad.
Yeah.
I did. Now the interesting thing is, like, I wanted to like add on to like Nick's point and agree with it with another show that like My Little Pony: Friendships and Magic, because for a while I thought, what the hell is like the bronies are either later on, like now, are one in two categories, either A, trans, hello, or B, Nazis. I didn't understand that until my friend Captain Wolfus explained to me in this episode of Social Justice Alchemy number 164, Cuck the World, where she explained how it happened. The short answer is pretty much this, is that like, well, the show My Little Pony: Friendship Magic has a lot of points, but it's also a lot of white liberalism. It's only until you actually get more of a framework, more of a leftist framework of like anti-racism and like land back and that sort of thing, you start to see the kind of like the problems with the show of like where they don't really challenge certain narratives, like with most egregious example that Tabby points out in the first season, where the story is that they're bringing apple trees over to this like a one city that were the settler ponies. Again, settler ponies with like where the cowboy hats and the bonnets and like looks like an old west, and they wanted to plant these apple trees there, but the buffalo whose land it was originally theirs to begin with wanted to run through that place, and so it was where the conflict of that show happened. Again, they were called the settler ponies, but how there was conflict got resolved is, well, partly in like with the worst song in the whole show. Pinkie Pie sings about how you gotta share, you gotta care, but it's the buffalo who were also stereotypically dressed up as like Native American people, as were indigenous people with like the feather hats and so, and they're buffalo too, so there's that. They have to compromise with the settler ponies, and it's all throughout the whole thing. It's another example of like the Diamond Dogs, because like again, just like in Star Trek, where it's like aliens is represent kind of like one character type, as it were, and that's the whole alien race. The Diamond Dogs finally agreed to like a Rarity because they couldn't handle her whining and crying, but then Rarity gets to access to the diamonds from the Diamond Dogs diamond mines, as it were. Same thing with the Yaks from Yakistan, and they're dressed up as like Mongolians, as it were, and they're all yak smash sort of thing. But again, even though like the show as Friendship's Magic and how difficult the ponies are, have to like deal with these other people, but is the other people, the non-ponies, that have to compromise with the ponies, and maybe they can get like access to diamond mines, so you still stay on the land and settlers, as it were. And so that's why the Nazis love My Little Pony and Friendship's Magic. It never challenges their narrative, never challenged their worldview, as it were.
Their narrative that they're the ones civilizing all the other peoples of the world.
Oh yes, and another example, even though she's a good character, Sakura, the zebra, did like voodoo magic, as well. I don't think they call it voodoo magic in the show, but she also spoke in rhyme. So all the kind of like tropes of like the magic,
that voodoo that you do.
Yes, exactly. Isaiah, you have a
Isaiah, your hands up.
Yeah, just two more things I gotta ask before we wrap this up. Do you have any advice about living in a like a more conservative area? Because I'm thinking about moving to Titusville to be close to Kennedy Space Center. I know, Steve, you live in a pretty right-wing area. Any advice? And also, I watched your late seating podcast about Armageddon. I laughed my ass off so hard.
I'm glad you liked it. I mean, it's difficult for me to give advice because I'm pretty self-sufficient and self-contained. So like I do okay, being solitary, and I don't really feel like I feel frustration in living in a heavily conservative area in terms of like big issue type stuff, where I feel like if we weren't as as majority right wing as we are in my area, like life would just be better for people because we'd have more humane policies and it would just be easier for people to get along. But in my day-to-day life, it doesn't really affect me at all because, I mostly keep to myself, and, I don't feel isolated or, like, oh, I wish there were more, liberal or left-leaning people around. But, maybe there are like some local Facebook groups or social media groups where people from the area who are more of a more in line with you politically or ideologically, that you can find people. I mean, the key is always to find your people, and no place, even if it does lean very heavily conservative, I mean, no place is 100% any one thing. So I guarantee you won't be the only non-conservative person around, and there will be other people who will probably be thinking the same thing, like, Jesus Christ, can I please find someone who's not a conservative to hang out with. You just need to find them. However you end up being able to do that.
Dana, do you have advice
also
too?
building the space shuttle Enterprise too.
Oh, that's cool. Dana, you have advice on living in a conservative area?
And being a more social person than I am as well.
Approach with questions.
Okay.
And be practice patience. Learn to figure out who you're going to interact with more than once, because you're not going to do anything in one interaction. It's not going to happen. research shows, and we see this from Graver and a fair amount. This is Thinking Fast and Slow is one. I don't know if I've book talked it yet or if it's one that's coming up. But people are more likely to, people put weight in the opinions of those they care about. So by building relationships, you're more likely to foster change. Additionally, dumping information, people make decisions mostly based on emotion, and then they use logic to rationalize those decisions. So
I'm just so frustrated. I really resent that people are like that. I wish they could just like listen to a statistic and go like, oh, okay.
Not they, we. That's literally the way the human brain works.
Okay, but like because of like most of my family, you know, is like concerned and whatnot.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to. Okay, so
go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to say like I have trained myself to always question anything like family sends me anything that sounds like maybe something I'd want to hear. I always go, okay, hold on, no, something's fishy about this. But I guess that's something that people have to teach themselves over years to do.
The questioning is different from making decisions. You know, having an open mind is definitely something that you can do, but realizing that you can sort of keep your emotions in check and not go in unthinking. And definitely the more of a certain idea that you put in your head, the better it sticks. It tends to sort of coalesce on itself. There's a lot of pleasure theory around that's exploring that. The more familiar something is, the more likable things like it are, if that makes sense. So you've sort of trained yourself to question these things, and that has reinforced in your emotional, non-thinking subconscious that this is a thing that I do. Does that make sense? It's that practice that makes that more emotionally attuned. It feels natural for you to do this. So we can not override, but we can retrain our emotions to respond in a certain way to different stimulus based on the person that we want to be. When you regularly act like the person you want to become, you become more and more like that person. So one of the things that I would highly, highly, highly suggest doing to anybody who has associates, I won't say friends, who are conservative, is to do things with them that help other people. Invite them to go with you and to do the praxis, to do the work of helping other people. Because two things: first of all, that gets them in the habit of helping other people, and second of all, it gets them to see you as a good person, someone who should be listened to.
My adopted mom is white and conservative, so that works a lot. It does. Oh, and by the way, one last thing. I know people don't like Thanksgiving in this chat, but instead you could celebrate my birthday because it falls on Thanksgiving.
Yes,
we'll all have dinner with our families to celebrate your birthday.
Yes, if I have to.
If I say Isaiah, and they'll think you're talking about the one from the Bible.
You're like, no, that's Jew stuff. We don't talk about Isaiah here.
Oh, golly.
I mean, last year I did nothing on Thanksgiving except like on my Twitch channel, I read the first chapter of A People's History of the United States by Harrison because I felt it was appropriate for that day, as it were. And that does remind me, I got to look into the holiday strike, as it were, because it's not necessarily a strike on holidays. However, next month's holiday, I think we can agree we can strike on and just celebrate Isaiah's birthday instead. But it's more of a strike of the capitalist commodification of the holidays, as well. So, like, suggestion for today, if it's probably too late, it's like, don't buy the cheap costumes at like Walmart or like Target, or they'll be thrown away next year anyway. Create your own costumes if you can, reuse costumes, or buy a costume from like an independent artist or like a small boutique shop, as it were. Someone independent, as it were. Basically, don't buy from big box stores, as it were. Same thing for like Christmas. Try your best to like either homemade gifts or like make your own gifts, or buy from like small independent like artists or like other people to like create the gifts that you can, as it were. Support small local shops, as it were. That's the premise of the holiday strike. And give it to
I'm going to scoot in really quick because I've actually got to go. So I'm going to say goodbye and keep your fingers crossed for a non-positive, negative test. Positive. A negative test result, which would be a positive, like living
a negative result would be a positive result.
Exactly. It's so weird. Anyway, bye everybody. It was great to talk to you.
Bye,
Take care, Dana.
That was Dana Cole, and she has her own YouTube channel of Dana Cole Dares, which I just put a link into the chat. Of course, like a friend Nick Anderson, who has talked a lot, has his own comic called Planet Ripple. So there's planetripple.com where you can check out the comments. You can support Nick Anderson if you want to through Nick Anderson's Patreon. You can also buy Nick Anderson's comic from ichitalk.io. The link there. But Nick Anderson also has like a YouTube videos where he does like mocks of like Legos, but also the Planet Ripple files and other kind of like reviews of like Lego products and other media as word on like his YouTube channel, which is a link right there. Of course, like Justice Alchemy later on today, the link to that channel right then and there. There's also my Twitch channel and my YouTube channel. When you can, no, that's the wrong thing. I have to like undo that and then like repost it. Hold on. I have it in like this specific order as where I could have gone out of order, but like and our friend Matthew Datcher, if you hear his voice and think he has a beautiful voice, I want to listen to that voice and fall asleep to it. Well, you can, because Matthew Datcher does a lot of audiobooks and public domain audiobooks on LibriVox, and there is like his reader account on LibriVox.org. So you just want to listen to Matthew Datcher's verse. There's other great readers on LibriVox.org though. Oh, there is the link to Matthew Datcher's audiobooks that he reads, and of course, the charitylinks.page. Charitylinks.page is linked down below into the description. And Steve, in the description, there's other like links to like other things to like how to support the show. In fact,
oh yeah. Funny you should bring that up. Yes, you can. If you want to support my channel, you can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives and become a patron for as little as $1 a month, and or you can become a channel member by simply clicking the join button. And either way, you really help me out. And whether you become a patron or a channel member at any level, you get the ability to ask questions ahead of time for Ask Away Q&A live streams, and also you get the chance to join us all for this happy little party once a month, because this is open to all channel members and Patreon patrons, whatever level you're pledging at. And I usually lock the meeting after there's 13 of us in total here, so it doesn't get to become too much of a zoo. But yeah, everybody has, it's first come first serve, and every patron and every member has a chance to get in on this once a month. So yeah, and it helps me continue to do what I do. So there you go. And before we wrap up, I just want to share one little charming anecdote from the movie that we are reviewing, Jason and I, for the next episode of Late Seating, which is the classic silent film Battleship Potemkin. And I was reminded of it because Nick was talking about anti-Semitism in Attack on Titan, and there's a scene in. And for anybody who doesn't know, Battleship Potemkin is Russian revolutionary propaganda, basically. It's pro-Russian Revolution propaganda. And it depicts...
It's like Mutiny on the Potemkin, right?
Yeah. It depicts it dramatizes an actual workers' revolt or sailors' revolt on a Russian battleship in 1905 during the first Russian Revolution, the one that didn't actually take. The one in 1917 is the one that actually took. But yes, but this was made after that. This was made in 1925, and it dramatizes this episode from 1905. And after the sailors take over the ship, they come into port in the town of Odessa, and the people of Odessa have also been involved in a workers' revolt. So they have a lot of solidarity with the sailors on the ship, and they all come to greet each other. And the crowd is getting all stirred up, about wanting to go on strike and wanting to protest. And someone in the crowd says, "We need to be united, and we need to not let things come between us." And then there's another guy in the crowd who is obviously like a rich dude. He's styled like a rich guy with like a suit and a vest and like a watch with a pocket chain. And he stands like this, which is like universal rich guy posture. He's got like his thumbs hooked in his suspenders. And he says, "Yeah, let's get the Jews." And everybody else in the crowd turns on him and kills him. And it's such a beautiful moment. It's like, what a nice, it's probably a fairy tale, because, I'm sure there would have been lots of people in that crowd that would have been like, yeah, fuck the Jews. But in the movie, this one guy who's like, let's kill the Jews, and everybody turns on him and they kill him instead. So it's a nice, happy human moment.
Yeah,
we
the
can
rich
all-
guy would be more subtle about it too. As
It's
well.
Real
yeah,
family movie.
subtlety is not one of the
Let's kill the bankers.
So- yeah.
Eat the rich.
subtlety is not one of the qualities of the film, but it's a good movie. But anyway, that's it. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks everybody for being with me in the room. As always, we will do this again next month. Happy Halloween, everybody. And yeah, take care. We'll see you next time.
Check out my latest video on my channel.
There you
about
go.
The Tallahassee shooting that happened here in my hometown. So yeah.
Oh wow. All right.
I'll repost Isaiah Taylor's the channel info into the chat as well.
Yeah, check out Isaiah's channel.
Boy,
All right.
Geek, I almost blushed during that. You didn't even ask me